Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Monday, July 13th, 2020. Thank you for joining me. It has become painfully evident that if we don't kill capitalism, capitalism will kill us. I know that might sound hyperbolic to you and it might sound extreme to some, but the grim accuracy of that statement is around us everywhere. Over the weekend, Disney World opened back up in Orlando, Florida, despite the fact that they had record-breaking outbreaks of COVID-19 in the state of Florida, and they opened to a celebratory video full of fanfare and excitement. And I want you to listen to and watch the absurdity of it all.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Welcome home. Welcome home.
Welcome home. Welcome home.
Welcome home. Welcome home.
Welcome home. Welcome home, everyone.
Welcome, citizens.
I'm sorry. I have no intention of laughing about this matter because it's not funny except for the absurdity of it. We're not talking about the weaponized ignorance of the Republican Party, of conservatives, of Donald Trump. We're not talking about those people who are intentionally engaging in propaganda just to own the libs and the ridiculousness of the hyperpartisanship that has become the marker of this era. We're not talking about this. We're talking about a multi-billion, damn near $1 trillion company with the highest paid consultants and advertising firms and people to sit around a desk with the smartest minds that they can afford to purchase, having a meeting over Zoom and deciding in a meeting over Zoom that they were going to reopen this park. Despite the fact that yesterday, July 10th, 15,300 new cases in the state of Florida alone. So far, 270,000 confirmed cases in Florida, 4,421 deaths. But some of the most brilliant and highly paid, and I use brilliant as tongue in cheek, because your salary is not an indicator of intelligence. Clearly, because the people who came up with this decision, not just the commercial, the decision makers who sat around and said, yeah, what we want to do is have a triumphant reopening in the middle of a damn plague. That's the absurdity of it. And it's not just something that we could throw at the feet of the ridiculousness of our time in general, which is marked by the hyperpartisanship, the extremes of political radicalization, where the people are really just willing to die to own the libs. People are really, conservatives are willing to spread this virus. It doesn't matter. They don't care because it is a political statement to them, and they've demonstrated that they are willing to die for their political beliefs, as ignorant as those beliefs are. We're not talking about this. We're talking about the best that capitalism has to offer. Disney is the best that capitalism has to offer. It is in the upper echelons of the rulers of this world, right up there with Microsoft, right up there with Amazon, right up there with Facebook. There's Disney. And this was the decision-making process. This was the culmination of their decision-making. And the truth of the matter is that not only was this decision outright ignorant, just downright stupid, it was a decision that was based in their quarterly profit margins. It was a decision that was rooted in the fact that they need us to come out and consume their shit. Because if we're not consuming their crap, then they are not making their profit margins. And so they really thought that people were going to be like, oh, Disney's open and they're all wearing masks, so it's safe to come out. And surely enough, some people went. And I guarantee you the people who went are the ones who are so committed to their political ideology that they are willing to die to own the libs. And so, yes, we've got to kill capitalism before it kills us. Because every single day during this pandemic, the rulers of this world who are only concerned with their profit margins are demonstrating to us that they are more than willing to risk our lives for their profits. They are more than willing to risk our lives for their profits. Meanwhile, I've gotten several messages from people who work for Disney indicating that it is true that some, if not all, of their corporate offices are closed. And so the only people who are risking their lives in this really are the workers, the people who are staffing Disney World, the people who are cleaning the resorts, the people who are the talent, who are in the parades. They're every day, twice, 3, 4, 5 times a day. The character, the Marvel parade, the people who are attending the roller coaster rides, labor. Those are the people who are being exposed to these sociopathic conservatives who refuse to even wear a damn mask. And so this system is demonstrating to us very clearly that it has no intention, it has no regard whatsoever for our safety and our well-being. And this from the, and I want to cut that thought off in the mid-sentence. Let me go here. You notice how as soon as coronavirus came out, everybody was like changing their commercials. They were changing their commercials to match, we're concerned, we're in this together. We're in this together. And while we're safe at home together, be sure to download this new product. We're safe at home together. Be sure to order more from Amazon. Right? And that was the move. That was the corporate move. The corporate move at the time was, okay, we need to adjust our language so people believe that we are in this with them and we are concerned with them, and so that they will see or have some type of emotional connection with our corporation. And now Disney is like, okay, enough's enough. We did that. We gave that a try. And now we need you to love us enough to come out here and risk your life in order to ride a roller coaster. I'm telling you, this system is perfectly designed to just shovel us like coal into a furnace, just to keep the engines of this system going, just to keep the engines, not even of the system. I want you to be sure this killing us on behalf of capitalism, right? Versus us killing capitalism on behalf of our lives is not representative of destroying the system on our end. Whereas it is on their end representative of killing us, destroying our lives. I didn't say that clearly enough. This is what I mean. Us purging this relentless pursuit for profits is not equivalent to tearing down the entire system. Our world can operate outside of capitalism. Our country can operate outside of capitalism, but our world cannot continue to operate and function so long as we serve capitalism, because one, it's going to kill us individually. And if it doesn't kill us by forcing us out into this pandemic to work and to consume and to give them our money and to give them our labor, then what it's going to do is continue to destroy our environment around us every single day. They do not care about our lives. They do not care about this planet. They don't care about anything except their quarterly profit margin, and they have you thinking that if we part ways with capitalism, then that is indicative, or that is synonymous with destroying the whole system. But this world would do just fine without capitalism constantly having a knife to our throats. This world would do just fine without the oligarchs, the rulers of this world, sitting in their pantheon of the ruling elite and holding the masses hostage. That's why they will not give us any type of universal basic income to keep us safe. They will not allow the government to write us a monthly check throughout the entirety of this pandemic to keep us at home safely consuming. They would rather see 1/3. This is a headline from this weekend. 1/3 of American families were unable to pay their living expenses in July. Not June. This is not a thing in the past. There is 1/3 of this country. Let me help you I'm sure you understand. 3/3 is the whole country. So 1/3, 30%. I know y'all know that. I just had to throw that out there because a lot of people don't realize how many 1/3 is. Like, that's a lot of people who are unable to pay their rent, and our government would rather leave it like that because the rulers of this world, the rulers who are seeking their quarterly profit margins, will not allow the government to take care of the people in the manner that the government is taking care of them by issuing trillions of dollars every single week to shore up Wall Street and the stock markets and the corporations. They will not allow the government to take care of the people like the government takes care of them. And because of that, we are constantly on edge. The people, I don't care if you make $150,000, $200,000 a year, there is a knife to your neck just like it is the rest of us, because all of us are being compelled to participate in a system that is trying to kill us in the middle of a plague. It won't rest. They will not set aside their profits long enough to protect their money base, their cash cow. They don't care. They figure they can generate enough profits. They have already estimated how many Americans can die, and they still hit their profit margins. So I'm sorry if this is jarring to you. The reality of what's going on in our world is even more jarring. If we don't kill capitalism, capitalism is going to kill us. I want to circle back to that data point that I threw out there. 1/3 of American households could not afford their rent in July. And we are headed towards, I believe it was the New York Times. I forget which outlet, but one of these outlets had a headline that I think is apropos. It says that we are headed towards an eviction crisis of biblical proportions. And I don't think that is hyperbole. I think it is probably putting it mildly. There's about to be a mass exodus of people out of housing into the streets with no housing. Because if they couldn't afford to pay their rent where they were, do you think they're going to be able to just move into somewhere else? We do not have housing on the federal level or homeless shelters enough to provide for that number of people, that many people being unhoused in the middle of a pandemic. Even if they were able to find a homeless shelter, they are at risk of contracting COVID-19 in the homeless shelter. And we are talking about people who are either still working and have lost hours and they can't get the amount of work that they need, or they lost their job during the pandemic, or hell, just those people who couldn't afford their rent anyway while they were working from home or working, whatever their arrangement was. We're talking about a large swath of people who the government has clearly shown they don't give a damn about. They do not care because they are the government, both federal and state level, they are completely capable of halting the eviction process in order to give people a chance to survive in this pandemic, but they would rather you be on the streets than to do something for you like they've done for the ruling elite of this country. It's painfully evident. It's around us every single day. You might not like the sum total of what this means, but the reality is slapping us in this face. Not only is capitalism trying to kill us, but we are literally dealing with a ruling regime that would sit by and watch us die, as well as take actions that put our lives at risk. That'll come in the next segment. But right now, the government is looking at this eviction crisis. And not only are they not doing anything to help, but they are facilitating by allowing the trials to go on And guess what? The trials are happening via Zoom, right? The trials are, some trials are happening in person, but there are others that are these court hearings, they're happening via Zoom because the government official knows they need to be safe. They can't be out there in a room, in an enclosed structure with air circulating, recirculating, coming back through and spreading COVID-19. So they're safely at home, putting people out of their homes. And the government is sitting by and facilitating this tragedy. It's not only capitalism that's killing us, but it is the current regime that is represented by both political parties. If you wonder why there is no political opposition against the things that Donald Trump is doing right now, or there's no political opposition against the evictions that are happening right now, if you ever wonder why you don't have a full court press from any group of politicians, no matter their political persuasion or party, it's because they are facilitators of this machine that is uniquely designed to grind us into dust in the middle of a pandemic. In the middle of a pandemic, it is more important to the rulers of this country to just watch the machinations, the machine, the machines of this system crush us into dust at our weakest point. You think that's dramatic? You think what I'm saying is hyperbolic? 1/3 of this country could not afford to pay their rent, and this government is not doing a damn thing to stop the eviction process. In fact, they are facilitating it. What else could we conclude when we put the sum total of everything together? What else could we conclude except the fact that this government is complicit with the misery and suffering of its own citizens? And it goes even further. The government is currently complicit in creating the conditions that will get us killed. In addition to the ruling elite, the billionaires, the corporations, these organizations that make billions and trillions of dollars in profit every single year, they are sitting by waiting for us to come out like sheep to the capitalistic slaughter. And despite the obscene uptick in coronavirus cases across the country, this government is it's doing everything it can to put pressure on the schools to reopen. Schools, like I've said before, I'll say it again, on the best day, when it's not flu season, the sun is out shining and it's a beautiful day, schools are still the petri dishes of our society, spreading every germ imaginable. Most schools, I'm taking from somebody's tweet, I don't know who said it, but it was a good one. They said, most schools can't handle a lice outbreak. You think they can handle COVID-19? Another person said on Twitter, I'll find the tweet and try to put it on the screen for those of you who are watching on YouTube. It says something to the effect that in her high school, they could not get soap and towels, soap and napkins stocked in the bathrooms. Do you honestly think that they are going to be able to stop the spread of COVID-19? And yet you have this moron. I mean, take your pick. You could actually put anybody in there. You could put Donald Trump in this sentence. You could put Mike Pence in that sentence. You could put Betsy DeVos in that sentence. You could put Ron DeSantis. So when I say moron, it's not descriptive enough. I'm talking about a different moron. I'm talking about Larry Kudlow, who is the economic advisor for President Trump. He went out and said, just go back to school. It's not that difficult. Listen to this sadistic moron.
If you follow that, I think there's no reason why this K through 12 can't reopen and even the colleges can't reopen. Just go back to school. We can do that. And, you can social distance. You can get your temperature taken. You can be tested. You can have distancing. Come on, it's not that hard.
I feel at this point it's necessary for me to just go through some of the things that we know about COVID-19 before I snap on that fool, right? Number one, people who are asymptomatic have been identified as the number one transmitters of COVID-19. Asymptomatic means you don't have a fever. So even if you're checking fevers, like he said, just like Disney, we're checking your fever. Matter of fact, I think I saw somewhere that you have to sign a disclaimer at Disney. I'm not 100% sure, but that falls right in line with the sadistic nature of capitalism, that they want you to come and spend your money and contract. Even if you contract COVID-19, they don't want any culpability to it. But anyway, I digress. The point is, you could take someone's fever and they still can spread COVID-19, right? That's number one. Number two, it takes weeks sometimes for this to show up. So a person who is asymptomatic, it will never show up. But even someone who does have symptoms, it still takes weeks after they contracted it for it to show up. And then the other thing I think people are forgetting is how long it is taking people to recover. Yes, a lot of people are recovering, but it is taking months. I have seen people say they're on day 119 of their experience with coronavirus, and their experience wasn't even the worst. Not that it wasn't bad. They all describe situations where they almost would rather have died. But it wasn't so bad that they were forced to go to an emergency room and get on a ventilator. And so what they're saying is not that difficult. It's getting ready to put people, millions of people across the country, concentrated into small rooms with recirculated air. That on any good day, it's still a petri dish. And they're getting ready to allow people who don't show any symptoms to spread the virus either throughout the entire year for an asymptomatic person, because we don't even know how long it lasts in an asymptomatic person. We just know that it could last hundreds of days. And then those people who will show symptoms, it could take up to 3 weeks for the symptoms to show up, to manifest. So they have spread it for 3 weeks. And then you're going to put teachers in these circumstances. What happens when they get sick? What happens when they come? Are you going to pay? Are you going to stand by them through the entire, if they're lucky, they survive, and it takes them 119 days to get over the sickness? And then what kind of condition will they be in to come back? Even the United States military is not allowing people who had COVID-19 to come into the military. Yet all of that we know about this virus, and you still have sadistic sociopaths like Kudlow speaking on this as some type of authority, saying, oh, it's not that hard. Let's just get back. We could do it. Notice that his position is he's the director of the National Economic Council. It's got nothing to do with education. He's got nothing to do with medicine. I want you to let's slow down and just dissect that for one more second before we move on. He has nothing to do with education, nothing to do with epidemiology, nothing related to the CDC, and yet he's insisting that children go back to school as the director of the National Economic Council. Why do you think that is? That's because the schools are a linchpin to this economic system. Schools have become glorified, or really have been nothing more than facilitators of allowing. It is a daycare that allows parents to go out and work 8 hours a day. If you don't have schools in, you can't have parents out slaving. That's why. Schools are critical to this economic system. That's why you have the director of the National Economic Council talking and saying with a certain level of certitude that it's okay for them to open up schools. Here's Betsy DeVos, who's the Secretary of Education, who I swear to God, between these two people, I may very well do some time.
But you're the Secretary of Education. You're asking students to go back. So why do you not have guidance on what a school should do just weeks before you want those schools to reopen? And what happens if it faces an outbreak?
You know, there's really good examples that have been utilized in the private sector and elsewhere, also with frontline workers and hospitals. And all of that data and all of that information and all of those examples can be referenced by school leaders.
But I'm not hearing a plan from the Department of Education. But you are arguing over and over that they should handle this on a local level. But at the same time, as the Secretary of Education, you are trying to push them to do a one-size-fits-all approach, which is go back and reopen schools. You can't have it both ways.
I am urging all schools to open and to be providing their students a full-time education.
Like I said, I might end up spending some time dealing with these fools, because they think that no one is going to, they think that They can't possibly think that there will be ramifications for their actions when their actions are going to lead to the death of teachers and students and bus drivers and cafeteria workers. I mean, at every single level, we are talking about we are talking about exposing our families to a virus that is so unnecessary because we have the technology for everyone to learn virtually, but they have a vested interest in getting the children out of the house. It's multi-tiered. I don't have to go through it. You can go to one of the episodes from last week where I broke down the multiple motivations that they have. Not only is this an economic driver, and it's going to be something that will free up parents to go back out to consume and to give their labor, but it is also a way for them to drain money out of these public schools because they know parents are going to homeschool. And if these schools are open without any accommodation whatsoever, and the majority of America that can afford to and has the capacity to do so, if they all homeschool, then that means that there are bodies missing from those schools, and that is what determines their budget. So if the schools are forced to open without any accommodation, but the majority of parents are like, absolutely the hell not, we're homeschooling, then that is going to be a direct way to drain money from public schools and put it wherever else they want it, including charter schools, for which Betsy DeVos is not only an advocate for, but she is a beneficiary of through her investments.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
And here we go. At this point in every single episode, I'd like to take a minute to thank the people who make the show possible, our patrons. Very special welcome to Allison Eddy. Thank you for becoming a patron. Inti Einhorn, thank you for becoming a patron. Clarence Hutchison, Richard Strube, Kevin Barnes, Pet Friend, Matthew Rick, Mike P, Annie Mac. Just bop your head. Thank you for becoming a patron. Ellen Oxfeld, Leo White, Marcia Everett, Robin Dorn, Travis Nelson, Jim Ray, and Sam's Bro 1952. Thank you all for becoming patrons. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get twice the content, uncut, unfiltered interviews, none of the commercial interruptions, and you give me the ability to speak truth to power and power to the powerless, whether the powerful like it or not.
Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is the diagnosis for this country is not a good one. But one thing that I think we have to start pressing back on is that this is the only way it can be, because it is not. They have you believing that if we change the political regime that's in control now, that America falls apart. That is not the case, because there was a regime before this. This regime, what all of us are experiencing is really a post-World War II order, a post-World War II regime that got entrenched based on the money from the military-industrial complex. Once they saw how much money could be generated in World War II through creating arms and proliferating arms, they never looked back. And both political parties, Democrat and Republican, are both complicit with this regime, this neoliberal economic paradigm, as well as neoconservative foreign policy. It is a single regime with two warring factions, and they want you to believe that if we do anything else, then the entire country falls apart. That is a damn lie. We do not have to suffer underneath a regime that that is pushing us into conditions that will get us killed. Number two, capitalism is not democracy, and capitalism is not America, and we can do without capitalism. In fact, we should, as a matter of self-interest, as a matter of self-defense, when this economic machine that is driving this madness that we see around us every single day has a knife to our throat and says you either go out and consume and give us your labor or you starve. And you either go out and consume and give us your labor in the middle of a plague or you starve. All to serve the profit margins of a handful of individuals? Are you kidding me? We'd be less than human if we just tolerate this. But the fear that is probably in the center of so many of your bellies, right? The anxiousness that you get when I say stuff like that is because we have been indoctrinated to believe that capitalism is synonymous with democracy. They are entirely different things. Entirely different things. In fact, you will see across the globe where America will tear down on democracy if that's what's needed to install capitalism. But you have been so trained to believe that one is the other and that they are inseparable. But in fact, the one, capitalism, is not only a threat to your life, it is a threat to democracy itself. And you see the absurdity. You know how absurd this thing is. You don't need me to tell you, but maybe you just like to have somebody confirm your suspicions to you. You see that these people and this system will stand by and watch you die and not blink an eye. Not only will it not blink an eye for you individually, but it hasn't blinked an eye for the last 137,000 people who have died. And before I get out of here, I just want to play something here. A friend of mine died Saturday. And we don't know for sure if it was COVID-19. We don't have the test results yet. I'm still in the dark, but he was my friend. And he was a brilliant, brilliant musician. And I've known him for, 17 years. He played at my wedding. My friend Rodney Allen. And this system has clearly indicated that it has no interest in even recognizing the number of people who have died. And if they don't, we must. And I want you to just listen to my friend play. I was, when I worked in ministry, I was a musician. I was a music director, and I hired him to be my pianist and my keyboardist and organist. And, like I've told everybody over the weekend, he was my employee, but I was his student. He was that brilliant, and he was my friend. And I just want you to listen to him play, and I want you to realize that this is the brilliance across the country that is being lost because of the callousness of our government.
Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.